round 2 of the Adelaide Eternal Highlander December Challenge. I'm Beckett Wolfe, a smooth g'day guys to you all, and I'm here in the booth with
Luke McGlaughlin here for the first time, doing some Adelaide Eternal commentary for the format of King's 7-point Highlander. So I believe in this match here we have Drew Carter on a Jeskai control deck that I believe he's almost built himself, playing at Scott Davidson-Bowey on Kess Pile. Scott definitely loves to draw cards and utilise the graveyard, and this is probably one of the best decks ever to do it with, I reckon. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, it's a pretty sweet list. It looks pretty close to mine. So just of note, Drew, an Adelaide Eternal member, he is, neither of these guys are in the Hall of Heroes, but Drew is gunning for it. He went 5-0 at the end of Swiss at the end of in GG's event, and he's going to get his little name and trophy and play profile. Should we go through Drew's list? He's on Jeskai Miracles, is what he calls it. I would call it a balanced list. I think a lot of it revolves around balance, which is why he's running Chrome Mox, EE, Scrabbling Claws, Phyrexian Furnace.
It's an insane density of Planeswalkers. One of the
Six
Highlander
Planeswalkers.
One of the Highlander decks I built quite early on was an Esper balance deck with Soul Ring, and being able to balance away your opponent for everything and have a resolve Jace the Mind Sculptor was a pretty empowering feeling. So
if you haven't played with balance, it really does balance the board.
Yeah.
But
one of the most unbalanced cards in Magic's history, I reckon. But
yeah, I mean, it balances. It doesn't balance everything, unfortunately. It doesn't balance artifacts, and it doesn't balance planeswalkers, which is why he's only got 2 creatures, and he's only got
one of which could be a planeswalker.
Yeah, and he's got 6 planeswalkers, 5 artifacts. So basically, that's what he's trying to leverage. And I've played control mirrors against him and just felt so far ahead. And then Mystical Tutor, and I think, oh yeah, even more card advantage for me. And then bang, he hits balance, and it's just back to square one, if not worse, because he's got something out. And same with playing creatures. Balance is a 2-mana sweeper a lot of the time. So it's really, very strong. As I said, he can get it with Mystical Tutor. He's also got Entreat the Angels, which is a really good finisher, which he can entreat for. So really cool deck. Lots of interesting little, ways to lose card advantage to gain tempo and vice versa.
It's interesting to see some of the newer inclusions from Guilds of Ravnica, Mission Briefing.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Mission Briefing, just in general and especially in Eternal?
I don't like it. I think in this deck specifically, it's good because he wants to see balance multiple times. And I think that's the only place it's really good. I don't like it. You like it?
I quite like Mission Briefing. I've been mucking around mainly in the modern format with its interaction with Archive Trap. So it's because it isn't flashback, it does allow you to for 2 mana mill your opponent for 26 if they go to fetch. But I think in Highlander, Snapcaster Mages are obviously quite a very powerful and pointed card. How important is the 2/1 body into the card opposed to just getting an additional spell in a Signature format?
I think it's crazy important. I think the whole point of Snapcaster is it's a creature which control decks don't often have. They don't often have access to a cheap creature. They usually have powerful creatures which turn the tide of the game. So to be able to fill a deck with multiple Snapcasters in something like Legacy or one in Highlander, you're able to pressure planeswalkers, jump block and trade with important creatures, or present, a very slow but inevitable sometimes threat.
Right, we'll definitely have to see where this game goes, I reckon, though.
So Scott will put his list up there briefly, but we've all seen it before. We've all played it before, at least I have, and we've done deck techs on this in the past. So if you want to check out Scott's list, you can freeze frame it here, and if you want to learn more about it, you can go to our previous videos. Let's get down to the games.
Yeah, the Kess list is pretty much 1 Kess and 74 cards that aren't as good as Kess. So we've got players starting off here, shuffling up and getting go. I believe we have Drew on the left of the screen here and Scott on the right. Players all 6s are good, unless it was odds or evens. I believe they've opted for the high roll.
Yeah, it's odds or evens. It's odds or evens, but they both roll.
The highest of rolls. 4 is not one of the highest of rolls. All right.
So Scott's going first.
Who do you think's favoured off the bat?
Oh.
Advantage is usually always to Kess, but I think Drew's deck's the amount of Planeswalker stuff and being able to nullify pretty much all of the creature removal out of the Kess pile deck seems to be a pretty good place to be in game one.
Drew's deck's really interesting. I've played this matchup as Kess versus Drew, and again, sometimes I forget that he runs balance, and I think it's just a control mirror, and I'm grinding hard for this card advantage, and then I just get balanced.
Ancestral Visions is probably where you want to be starting in this control deck, but we have Forcible Dig Through Time
and Dive Fleet. I think
this is definitely going to be one of the longer games. I feel just by the scope of the players' hands. So we have a Steam Vents coming down, and what do we got? Plateau.
Scrabbling Claws. If you haven't seen Scrabbling Claws, it's like
Relic of Progenitors.
Yeah, Relic of Progenitors. So his idea is, he's got Chrome Mox.
He's exiling the Ponder to presumably suspend the Visions.
So you can see how Chrome Mox can be really good with balance, where like look at this. Drew's already down. He's on the draw, and he's already down to 4 cards.
Yeah, it looks like that with the Ancestral coming off eventually as well.
Yeah, so he can balance go down to 2 cards after a land drop, and get very far.
I feel this game's going to go long though, I feel that potentially like getting the Ancestral on the table is very, very important. But I almost would have liked to just pass for a couple of turns and utilize the Ponder just to make land drops every turn. But it does look like Drew just does not have any blue mana, and he's leveraging on this Chrome Mox.
If you're not deploying Chrome Mox turn, surely Chrome Mox is best turn 1 and gets worse as the turns go on, right?
Yeah, potentially.
Are you suggesting it's better to exile a card that's less relevant?
I probably would have waited a turn. I feel that especially not having the blue mana and making this Chrome Mox your only blue source, having access to the Ponder to kind of excavate to a point where you could exile maybe a card you wouldn't be using to the Chrome Mox and then having access to the Ponder. But in saying that as well, Ancestral Vision is probably the most important card of this matchup at the moment because this game will go long. Although it does look like a very aggressive Vendilion Click on the draw. But
how do you like draw step Vendilion Click? To be honest, in control mirrors, often I think draw step Vendilion Click's really it's a famous sort of thing, and it's something people do against combo, and I like doing it. But against control, I actually just like doing it end of turn.
Yeah. Unless you're playing a really tempo-orientated, or hybrid control deck, like the old Splitter Twin decks and stuff, when you're trying to force your opponent to commit without the full amount of knowledge to see if they respond to it. You kind of restrict your opponent's options if you do it at the end of their draw step as well, because they need to figure out what they're going to commit there and then. But I think Vendilion Click, I've definitely been 20-0 by Vendilion Click quite a lot against the control decks and things of that nature. So it would have been interesting to see if the Vendilion Click did come down end of turn and then force a response from Drew, in this case being the source to Flash Airs, and then Scott commit a threat after. But I haven't been able to see Scott's hand for this game.
Drew might commit a threat. He might go Khan there or something like that. And then the click comes down and is able to pressure that Khan. Mind you, Scott doesn't know what Drew's on. He might think he's on a combo deck. He's seen 2 Scrabble. He's probably never seen for a Q first.
Well, the one thing that I do like about the Vendilion Click there is Drew's obviously missing on lands. He's exiled a Ponder to cast an Ancestral and then missed and not played a blue source for the next couple of turns.
That's right. He would have
by even able to find if you Vendilion Click away a Preordain there or something like that as well, I feel that you're pretty far ahead in terms of that. But I feel that this Ancestral's probably not gonna happen. Can you imagine if there's an Ocean Thief here? That'd be the best.
Best Force.
Force seems good. Don't know how much Misdirection would have been sick. Something Mystic Confluence. That's an interesting one. But I think
you got to do what you got to. I mean,
no, I think Scott's realised that because would you say that Kespal is more of a mid-range deck?
Yes.
Than it is, yeah. So I think he's realised that,
particularly my build, I don't actually have that many counters.
Well, I think Drew's he's got all these Ancestrals and these these long going cards, but he's just stumbling. And Scott knows his hand is Mental Misstep, Spell Snare, and Khan, I believe, were the 3 cards that we saw.
Top's quite good.
Top's pretty good. That I think he's identified that he can close this game out while his opponent's stumbling, because I think I've seen Scott's holding a Damnation or something as well, which, as we know from the kind of the list reveal earlier on, not the best of cards when there's only 2 creatures in Drew's deck.
Yeah, and one of those is Flash, and the other one is going to flip. Yeah, so
Scott missing on land 5 is pretty huge.
I think Top's going to do a lot of work here, and there's Jace Narset in the. He's going to have to fetch if he wants to play the Narset.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to just hit land drops at this point. So like I said, he's got the card as well, which can also filter with the top, which is actually a pretty cool interaction that most formats unfortunately don't get to see.
Top and Khan, yeah.
Yeah, because
well, you could go Khan here, keep up spell, snare. Was it snare or pierce?
snare and misstep, I believe.
Keep up snare.
You have to be worried if your opponent's exiling Mystic Confluence to force a will over an Ancestral, or feeling in a really good position, because you've kind of realised that your opponent would like to, 2-for-1 themselves in a sense to stop you from drawing free.
Well, I was going to say, Drew's already got the card advantage out of Visions. It didn't really cost him much.
Fire? Yeah, Fire's pretty good. But this will be the spell snare that we were talking about a second ago, I think. And I think you should be fighting over this as well.
I think so. You've
got 2 fetches in Joseph Flip, but Drew's showing a fair amount of patience.
Maybe he was, thinking it was some kind of bluff. But there's not that many 2-drops that I think Drew's worried about, really. They're always going to be counters or removals. Or is he just expecting, counterspell and wants to resolve Khan?
If you're trying to defend like a Planeswalker, you can defend against counterspell, Mana Drain, and Mana Leak, and potentially even Dreadbore and those kind of things as well. So I think Planeswalkers, outside of cards like Dreadbore and stuff, the Grixis deck really does struggle to deal with it. And Khan comes on with so much loyalty. He's going to kill the Chrome Mox, I feel.
And top, which responds?
Yeah, you definitely respond with the top, but your opponent hasn't fetched and want to leave the cards there, so it's quite an aggressive line to hide the top, but it does mean that your opponent's top locked for this turn as well, unless they want to shuffle away the top with the
and then it's
the delta and the
getting started on that life total as well, Scott. Got to start somewhere, mate.
Yeah, confidence is pretty powerful. So I think he's just going to redraw the top and then pass and play the top potentially pass. I don't think Drew's going to commit this turn either, because he showed such restraint the turn before. So I think it'd probably just be play top and then pass.
But unless Scott's capped out now, right? I'd say he goes for the Khan with snare backup.
Well, he doesn't have snare backup because he doesn't have 5th land, right? Because he lost the Chrome Mox.
Right.
So now he's just back to exactly where he was. But Scott, unless you're playing around days, which I don't think you should be at this point, then your card will resolve and get you a card. So then I guess you are kind of at +1. I actually quite just like making a creature with the Khan. The artifact golems from Khan, or the construct tokens, actually do close out games very quick. Especially when we're just talking about all these scrabbling claws and all these other bits.
Mind you, 3 artifacts in the bin already, is that right?
Yeah. The Chrome Moxes and
3 artifacts exiled already. So, but I do agree. I think it's a cute little interaction, and that the Khan actually does get it. Yeah,
it's more like if your Khan comes down, you uptick the Khan as well. You're in the high 70%, I think, to hit a land or something off them. Your opponent will 90% always give you the land because they want to give you spells. This case may be different because Drew's been missing, but
yeah.
So I think you should give him the search here.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I would have given Drew the search and not given him the land drop for this turn.
I think it's a small,
especially if you were going on the resource denial plan of destroying the Chrome Mox. I think giving your opponent their land drop for the turn to the Planeswalker is quite strange, but Scott's definitely a man with a plan.
I think search is, again, it's the same as mission briefing. I think search is quite good in Drew's list because of what he's trying to do with balance, but I don't actually love it in Highlander. And I agree. It'll basically take Drew an entire turn to deploy that threat. And if you're limiting his mana, it makes it more difficult.
It just really depends on kind of what you're trying to do with your decks as well. I don't think search is at its best in the Grixis deck. This is coming from a person that just casts lightning bolts and Lana Catalyst Menu, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But cards like Search for a Scanter, just being able to net you a card, like a card that can just sit there, filter your draw step, and eventually net you a card at some point down the track, is a card that's I feel of really high value. Unless you're of if you think of Search for a Scanter as potentially not necessarily a spell that you need to cast on turn 2. Or even just a point where it comes out later in the game when you're kind of boiled down to a low resource game state. An activation of Search for a Scanner will usually win you the game if your opponent has enough.
Me and Sav have always hated it, but it was in Mimi's GP winning list, so there's obviously something to it. Interestingly, if Khan downticks, Dak would be able to downtick steal the token.
Yeah.
Which I think was
a pretty interesting one.
Would have been a pretty good tempo play. And 2 lands there. Yeah,
you can see that's the ruins. I almost would have taken the search there and putting the search in to play that turn. I think now is potentially a window you could resolve it because Scott still hasn't hit that 5th land after turn 26. But
he's going. Yeah, I don't mind.
It's an interesting one.
It does pretty cleanly get rid of deck, right? It's a 5 mana removal spell, draw a card. When you've got Khan out, I think it's what you want to be doing.
Yeah, Funeral is in this format is very impressive. I unfortunately played it a little bit too much in other formats, and it was very underwhelming. This will be probably a spell snare.
Dire Fleet for nothing.
You can't cast visions off it, right?
Yeah, no, you can't.
It's not the old as for told shenanigans. Are you sure?
Surely, right?
I believe you can.
But it's 0.
Yeah, no, you can.
No. Because he's had Dire Fleet in his opener.
So he's probably looking for a window to resolve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering if this was similar text to like the living ends of the Asphaltolds and things as well.
It's a pretty crazy tech, guys.
So I got to Dire Fleet Daredevil. My opponent's ancestral recall to Q draft yesterday. That felt pretty powerful. He's not casting. I was totally kidding, by the way. Yeah. He's just using it to exile it. So the Dire Fleet comes in and does a similar thing where like you will give it to the spell as an exile. But yeah, it's my Asphaltol.
Yes. Well, yeah. I was pretty sure because you can't snap it. So if you can't snap it,
no. Snap technically gives it flashback, which is the alternate cost for it. So that's why you can't snapcaster like a Force of Will, but you can snapcaster a mission.
So then this implies that Scott's getting pretty desperate if he's casting a 2-1 first strike for 2 just to pressure the card.
Well, Scott just needs to get on the board.
I think it's good. I think Scott made the right play, but I think it shows that he's got not much going on at all.
Yeah, he's just getting drowned by this card, and
I think snare, holding the spell snare.
But like I said, you just put the search into play now, and yeah, you've got the Khan rolling. You'll have a search flipping next turn as well, giving you pretty much three cards worth of card selection as well.
Anyway.
Yeah, and hitting land drops, and the search is also a land drop as well. You can play the search, next turn to have it flip straight to a land.
Yeah, so Drew's rolling here. I just want to also note that the spell holding off on the spell snare was he's got Mr. Back.
Yeah. So now I think we're down to 0 known cards in Drew's hand. He has the Steam Vents. Is the only known card?
They're both pretty out of resources, except.
So I think Drew's last card is Steam Vents by memory.
Yeah.
But my memory is pretty bad.
No, he does. He's got Steam Vents.
Yeah.
Dig's pretty good.
Well, Scott's had that since his opener as well.
I think it's a shame that he can't chain this Dig into dig something good. Like he's going to be stifled with. I dig. What do I find? I find Kes. But is that too slow? Do I hit land drops? I think ideally he wants to get Tassiger or
he wants to hit Dreadbore.
Yeah.
He wants to hit. He wants to have a land in his hand and hit Dreadbore something. And I don't think after delving into through time he'd have enough resources for any of the delve threats anyway.
Land Dreadbore Tass would get him back, I think.
Is that enough cards? That's 3 cards. You can't draw 3 cards.
But he's got 2 in hand.
Yeah. But we know they're not lands because he's missed his last 5 land drops.
Well, you never know. He could have ripped.
Yeah, it could have been sandbagging the land.
He could have been sandbagging the Dig through time.
He's had the Dig through time since his opening hand. And I actually, now playing the Dire Fleet Daredevil earlier turn kind of to commit to the board actually makes a bit more sense. Because Scott knows about the spells there. Scott knew about the mental misstep. Scott knew about all these cards from the Vendilion Click that he played on turn 3 and draw step. So it's kind of trying to filter out what the unknown cards are. And now that Scott's pretty much operating with perfect information at this point, that he knows that he's able to commit this Dig through time. So he hits land, and what have we got here?
Lily, that's not terrible.
Lily plays. And once again, this issue is a Fumarole. This Fumarole's just going to... I guess he gets the down tick.
Oh, yeah. No, the Fumarole deals with it so cleanly.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting one, but yeah.
It's a shame.
This is where Search for Escanta is absolutely insane.
I'm not convinced.
Not convinced?
I'm not convinced.
You get to hold open a counter spell, then end of turn impulse.
Yeah, but I don't know. First of all, Drew's already winning. It's not a card that gets you back when you're losing. This is in the control mirror. This is when it's best. I've found even in hard control mirrors, it still feels too slow.
Oh, that's pretty bold words.
He's gonna activate it, but that's only because we're in a hard control mirror and he's already locked out the game. And I think any threat...
Don't forget the fact that it is also acceleration as well. Hitting your... Once again, if you talk about control mirrors and stuff as well, or just getting into games the whole point of aggro decks, for example, are trying to kill your opponent during setup. So there's all these really interesting small things that end up, especially in formats with Highlander, where you have all these, these cantrips, you have all the fetch lands or whatever. Being able to just bunny hop from turn 4 to turn 6 and being able to resolve adjacent and have counterspell mana up or something is pretty huge. the Jeskai decks outside of like Chrome Mox or something, you're card negative for that effect. But having an effect like Search for Scanter or something as well, giving you the acceleration for literally playing a game of Magic with some minor upside, I feel is where the card shines. Like you're not really you're committing to.
There's just so many other this is a Highlander, right? There's so many choices,
and I think Search is one of the better ones.
I've just died. I've lost. I've beaten Search for Cancer in hard control mirrors, resolved on turn 2. Game goes as late as possible, and I drew fine. They drew fine, and the Search was just like, as soon as he activated Search, he like tapped 4 mana, and I was able to resolve something else. It didn't make too much of a difference, and I was like, if it's not making much difference in hard control, when is it good? Because I guarantee you it's too slow for Sue or Burn.
It's also like the utilization of when you use it as well. Like it's good Magic cards. Or like cards that are versatile, like cards that are historically bad in Magic are cards that give your opponent the choice. A good example, I think, is Fact or Fiction versus Steam Augury, which is the old Return to Ravnica reverse Fact or Fiction, where you made the polls and your opponent picked. Or cards like Browbeat. Browbeat's like, he gets to draw 3 cards or deal 5.
Or Calm.
Sorry, or potentially Calm. But like, there's a lot of like.
Or Risk Factor.
Risk Factor, I very much underestimate that card. The additional jumpstart on that card makes that card actually playable.
Yeah, but jumpstart's good, isn't it?
Just because you have the search there to activate doesn't mean you have to activate the search. It's just more about giving you more things, more actions, and more things to do than your opponent when you're operating on nothing, or potentially everything. Like, Drew's probably not going to activate the search this turn. He's just going to hold out probably this counter spell that he's going to get off the top.
Expansion Explosion?
It is Expansion Explosion.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah. And, like, he can pressure with the Fumarole. Like, he's got, like...
Your neg can't get force, and that's the game locked up, right?
Potentially.
And then you just hold up Expansion Explosion.
I'd probably just get the Field of Ruin. So, like, you get the card off the top, and then you get the Field of Ruin, then you kill the opposing Fumarole and get the free shuffle off that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd get the force here. It's just the safer play. I know he's got counterspell backup, but, like,
Yeah, and, like, I don't know.
That's pretty game.
It's definitely an interesting decision point to kind of see what, like, I think, like, Drew, because he has the top, he's not super concerned about the land drops, and the card is pretty much going to make you hit land drops for the rest of the game.
After watching this game, Drew's been ahead for a while. I feel like the thing Drew's deck might lack is an ability to close. What I really like about Kess is it is a hard control deck, and we've talked about how it's actually more like a mid-range deck, but it's able to close games, and it's able to close games really quick, sometimes from behind, sometimes against aggro. It's able to go like Bolt Kiss Bolt or stuff like that, or Gear Hog Swing, or like 1 mana 5/5 Gurmag. Drew has locked this game up pretty well. I'm waiting to see, like, where's it going,
He's got a bunch of Planeswalkers, and he's got... this is why I wanted to take the Field of Ruin. It's because you get to stop this.
Yeah, but I don't... How much is Deck doing?
Well, it's more the fact you do get to keep things alive as well. Like, Drew's top card is Counterspell. You could have taken the Field of Ruin. So now he gets to draw the Counterspell, and you could have had the Field of Ruin, and the Force wasn't doing too much. And, like, obviously, Electrolyze was a clean enough answer for it as well. If your opponent does go for the flip. Interesting, he didn't actually draw the Counterspell off the Electrolyze. What did he draw? He had Expansion Explosion, Counterspell, and
something good.
Something else.
Something real good, obviously.
Definitely an interesting one. But yeah, as we were just mentioning before, with this game kind of swinging more in Drew's favour, I think it was pretty much the point where Scott just never hit his 5th land drop for 6 turns.
Yeah. I'll play that. And Drew's definitely hit his land drops, hasn't he? So I don't think you need field at this point. I reckon you might even make a little dude, right?
Make a 2/2?
Yeah, make a 2/2. And then next thing he swings for 3/2.
He's got Mission Briefing.
And Expansion Explosion.
Yeah.
It's pretty done, right? Finish him off, Drew. Finish him off. I think I'd be making little Khan tokens. Like, Khan giving you, like, the second best card out of the top 2.
Yeah, I think it's now the point where you start
if you're discarding Balance and Fire Eyes, I think you're pretty far ahead, right?
Yeah, and you've got Alyssa's as a Teferi. Okay. Also, Teferi, Search for Scanter, very powerful combination as well.
I'll play that.
So Teferi is a massive addition to pretty much any format that is running blue or white. I've never been so scared of a Resolve Planeswalker in my entire life.
I really want to play Teferi with Library and Highlander.
Yeah, there's so
Library, play Teferi, draw back to 7, pass turn, untap Library.
It's very good. Teferi is definitely a very powerful Magic card. There's in pretty much every format that I play, I just do not want to see my opponent resolve a Teferi. It just does everything, and what it does is, as we were just mentioning before, is like how does Drew close games? Previously, they've got cards like Jace, which are super slow, or a bunch of other things. Teferi just kills you very, very quickly. Like there's a lot of interesting kind of almost matchup dynamics that have changed just because of the existence of Teferi. Like if we're going to talk about Modern, for example, the blue-white control deck versus the mono-green Tron deck. Previously, the mono-green Tron deck had pretty much infinite time in the world. The addition of stuff like Damping Sphere and Field of Ruin make that matchup a little bit harder to win. But the existence of Teferi now means you just can't wait anymore. And I think the blue-white is actually favoured against mono-green Tron because of the existence of Teferi.
That's a big call.
And I think that's a big consensus now as well.
There's Mystical Tutor, which will do it because that's going to find enough angels, I reckon.
If you made a Khan token, you could have killed him with the Tempora Mastery. There's a Tempora Mastery in his deck as well. So
yeah, that's another option. I think he's just going to get Entreat the Angels though, right? And Entreat Miracle. He can do it with top as well. He can go Mystical at the end of your turn, put on Entreat, activate top, Entreat for enough.
It's the world's Drews.
And he's got Force of Will in hand.
We've spent a lot of this time talking about how a 5-head Drew is, but Scott's definitely tried to put up the good fight here.
Well, I think it's fair enough with Scott. He wants to see what the finishes are. He's seeing all these Planeswalkers. Now that he's seen Gideon, it's almost a bit more info. It's like, okay, I'm playing against a Planeswalker deck.
No, it's definitely, and I think Scott's played this game to the best of what he has as well. It's just like we said, it just comes down to the land drops. Like Drew had turn 1 Ancestral that prompted a Force of Will exiling a Mystic Confluence for pretty much nothing from there, and then just got dismissed on resources and wasn't able to leverage the Dig Through Time and the Treasure Crest that he had in his hand.
But Gideon's also actually a threat for Drew. He can close the game. As we've said, neg Khan a few times, and I think you'll get there, right?
One of my favourite things to do is to play a Gideon on open board and being able to uptick on a Fumarole or something to defend the Gideon. You just feel so far ahead because a lot of these control decks will just leverage hard on Tuppy and Fumarole. Exiling Jace to Force. That's not a position that you want to be in.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he could just hard cast Force at this point, right?
Doesn't need to.
You
know that you cannot win the game when your opponent is hard casting Force of Will. Is alternate costing Force of Will with a Jace.
Yeah.
Because there's something even better coming.
Yeah.
This is Ascanta.
And it's Temporal.
No, it's Activating Surge.
Yeah, as Activating Surge, he's got Temporal. He's hitting Mana Drain. I guess he's playing. I think Drew's playing very conservatively. It's hard to criticize what he's doing because, to be fair, this is what his deck does. Is he falls back on Planeswalkers.
There's definitely more efficient lines that could have been taken, but at the end of the day, we'll kind of get to the point where I think you can lose this game, and it was actually pretty interesting. I heard what was the analogy? It was called it was something along the lines. I was watching some Hearthstone commentary last. It was like opening the nut syndrome, where a player who opens, just has everything at some point is more likely to make errors due to the fact they feel that they are, they feel invincible and they can't lose because they have every single card under the sun and they can, just kind of get there, and they're more likely to not squander is not the correct word that I want to use here because Drew's play, has answered and evaluated threats correctly.
Yeah, as I said, it's hard to criticize any play. Every play has logic to it, and every play is getting him closer to victory. But I mean, I remember playing against Esper Control. I was playing with Esper Control against some green deck, and I was so far ahead it was almost a joke. And he ended up just having Thrun, and I literally had there was no way I could beat it.
The only argument for potentially taking the more aggressive, one of the arguments of taking the more aggressive line in this situation is pretty much just like you're giving Scott more time to draw out of the Mana Screw and draw additional cards. Like if we look at the last couple of turns that have happened as well, Scott had a cryptic which fought over. Unfortunately, Atasca got mana drained or something, but Scott was able to leverage his resources versus Drew's resources and actually, tax some cards out of Scott. unfortunately, as the board stands, we can obviously see that, Drew's going to be like pretty much +4 cards every turn between the Escanter, the Teferi, potentially even the Faden and the Khan. And realistically, I don't think there's a way that Scott can back into this game.
I don't think there's anyone.
But it doesn't necessarily matter. Like, Scott's played this game with the resources that he had.
Well, and Scott's also learned a lot more about Drew's deck.
Yeah.
I think seeing that Gideon was a big one. He's like, that Gideon is like, okay, I'm playing against a Planeswalker balance deck.
I think
Drew, I think here's one minor mistake. He was so far ahead, he didn't need to discard balance and show Scott that he's on balance.
Yeah, there's a lot of like small, like the information is very, very important, and I think especially in Highlander or playing against like Drew's kind of deck, and because of the configurations of the control decks, it's hard to know what to play around because sometimes they have this spell or that spell or something.
It's a massive gotcha factor.
Yeah,
he's almost out of cards here, mate. He's got to do something.
Oh, he can have one with Gideon and not
lose.
No. All bases covered.
But how many threats does he really have? Like, I guess the card.
He's got Entreat and Upset and the card. He
just needs to resolve the Entreat, I think.
This is draw 4, gate, take 4. This seems ambitious.
Yeah, I think when your library milling yourself is a relevant thing. When milling yourself is a relevant factor, yeah.
I know. I think Drew can get to the point where there's the only out to the Gideon is the Dreadball, right?
Yeah, and it's gone, so there's a snap, but. There you go. Have some
Earthquake test.
Have some things. I think, I'm
surprised. Right?
I think Drew was playing around counter spells too much. I think if he'd gone to Mystical Tutor Entreat, Entreat got countered. Mission Briefing Entreat for 2. Like, how much is 3 mana plus 2 for Mission Briefing is 5, and then you get XX. You can still do it for 2 and keep up counterspell back up.
Yeah, I think
after it's been countered the first
This
time.
is just lethal this turn, right? Because you have Fumarole, which is 4, Gideon, which is 4, and the Strix, which is 1, which is 9. Excluding the card token that's already in play. So, yeah, it is lethal many different ways.
Wow. So, going to sideboards. What a game. Going to sideboards. We'll get Scott's up quickly. Scott's got Blue Elemental Blast, Flusterstorm, Hydro, Pyro, Red Elemental, Thoughtseize. I'd say they're probably all coming in. Maybe not the second. Maybe not the Blue Elemental. Maybe one Hydro.
I quite like Blue Elemental in this matchup as well. It helps you fight over opposing red blasts and stuff, but you do get to see cards like Dak Faden and a few other things as well. You can kill Wandering Fumarole with it, which is actually pretty big. I actually had that come up the other day. But I think the most important cards that he's probably going to want to be bringing in is potentially either this Blood Moon, which I think can probably pay quite large dividends, or this Thoughtseize to try to fight over just the amount of cards that are just going to be spewed out.
Do you like Spellbomb?
I'm never a real big fan of Spellbomb as a cantrip. It's like you saw a Mission Briefing and you didn't really see many flashback stuff, but you do get to fight over cards, obviously, just like the Jason, just the Escanters as well. So
yeah, so
I'd consider it. I'd probably cut cards like Lightning Bolt and potentially those kind of just creature-based. If there's like a Fatal Push in this
there's
Chain Lightning,
Deluge, Chain. Mind you, Chain can pressure Planeswalkers. It's not where you want to be. But
I as much as I do agree that like obviously bolts can kill Jason and stuff like that as well, I feel that you do not want to be drawing bolts.
I agree.
You want to be drawing your higher impact cards as well. It's really hard to say. I'm definitely not a control aficionado. I'm definitely the opposite. Cards I balance usually.
There's things you need to take out though. Yeah. So looking at Drew's list.
Drew think has a lot of cards for this kind of matchup as well. So
I think he was expecting a fair bit of control. So he's got even Mind Sensor.
He's got the Moon package himself, which is actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I guess we did see a lot of basics out of it. I think Scott will still bring in the Blood Moon, but I think it's actually a mistake looking more into it as well. That's a really interesting thing about these 3 color decks as well, is that they all just seem to have Blood Moons in them randomly. Just I know like the Grixis decks from
GP Melbourne
as well.
Had a Blood Moon
trying to Blood Moon people out as well.
Same in Legacy, Grixis Legacy. Like some people are just splashing. Like I was playing the Mirror, and I got Blood Moon.
Yeah.
And I'm on the same deck, same amount of lands, but just the fetching that they knew they had Blood Moon, and then game 3 they took it out. It did get me. I don't play it, but it got me.
Yeah, and it's definitely it's one of those like comes in for game 2, take out in game 3 kind of thing, because it's the existence of the card or the knowledge that the card exists that makes it scarier than anything else as well. It's like I think a good example is for the Pro Tour just went where LSB played Boros aggro, and because deck lists are open for top 8. The Channel 5 team played a 1 Settle the Wreckage in their sideboard. Not for the fact that they'd expect to draw it, but it's more the fact that for people that are playing against them, it will give them that slight edge that people know that it exists and will actually actively play around it if possible. And it's that weird level of this card exists, whether or not I have it in my deck is another story.
So of note, they've sort of both got that cheap 1 mana Fluster, Hydro, Red Elemental, Pyro.
Blue-red sideboard staple.
Yeah. And I really like Lightning Helix in the side. It's not coming in here, but that's a cool little sideboard card for extra creature removal on life gain. And do you think the Misdirection's coming in? Again, a bit of gotcha factor from Drew.
I quite like Misdirection, those kind of effects. I think it's probably not where you want to be in this matchup.
But just for the gotcha factor.
I wouldn't bring it in. But
I'd bring it in, but I'm a bit of fun. I'm a bit more fun than you, Luke. You know?
I've misdirected my fair. I got to divert a Hinder Terrac at you at Legacy the other day. That was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah. I think I started playing Red Elemental Blast after I got diverted so many times in Legacy. So going back to the games, players are just shuffling up, cutting up. I'm going to go ahead and assume that Scott will be on the play on this one.
These players are probably running out of time for this matchup as well, which is something that we mentioned.
That was a long
slog. I think that's one of those things we were saying before is, even though Drew locked up that game and obviously got to the point where he was head and had advantage, there was potentially a chance for an unintentional draw because of some of the definitely taking a fair amount of conservative lines at all points.
Well, there's enough time for game 2, but not necessarily game 3. So there's enough time for Scott to win, and then to not have enough time to play the third. Drew, yeah, I think Drew actually, for that factor, he was so far ahead, he could have played riskier, and then Entreat the Angels gets countered, no worries, I'm still going to win. Flashback Entreat the Angels, that gets countered, no worries, I'm still going to win. I can still get in, I can still, let's just go for it every turn.
It's like what happened in our match as well. Like we had time called on us as well, and I made a very, very no value aggressive Archangel Avison played to attempt to close out the game as well, which actually ended up leaving me in a bad spot
you go for an aggressive line, hoping that you can close the game, and then it turns out that I couldn't, and then in a no time limit game, you would have played the conservative line, and it might have been.
It's very hard to see where that game actually would have gone if we still had all the time.
So I didn't get a good look at Scott's hand. Drew's hand's pretty decent. I think he's got Remand here, and I don't mind remanding my own Jace here
for the +1.
Yeah, give it a crack.
But I also just like holding on to it. I think if you're tapping out for a Jace on your turn and then defending a remand by rerunning your own Jace and then allowing your opponent to resolve the threat, I think you're in a very, very bad spot.
Yeah, it's true that you can get done by like a big thing, but there's not that many threats.
You can just resolve Ashiok and you'd be very, very far behind.
Yeah, I guess so. It's an interesting one. I reckon I'd take the risk, but because I think card advantage is just as relevant as maybe Scott's got. It's annoying playing.
I think tapping out on turn 4 in a controller is, especially when your opponent has cards like Kess and Ashiok. And
I hate playing around both counter spells and threats.
That's what we are.
Is that just what Magic is?
Yeah. Just threat evaluation and card advantage.
Drew's got Chrome Mox in hand as well, and Mystical Tutor.
That'll probably stay in his hand, I reckon.
Snap. It's going to be a snap remand.
I think this might be a fight over this.
Well, remanding your own Jace here makes the snap.
No, you just remand their rerun because of the Snapcaster will put it into exile anyway.
That's probably better. Is it? Which one's better? Yeah, that is better. Yeah.
Yeah, because then they're not even getting the remand back because it's in instant exile. Avid Mind Center one time. Can you imagine the rush?
Yeah.
I've definitely got two.
Do you reckon he's brought the mind sensor in?
I actually quite like it. It's the Vendilion click thing that we were talking about before, where it's just a flash threat that can apply pressure to planeswalkers as well. Probably wouldn't have brought it in this matchup. I think it's for the matchups with that have a bunch of tutors like like Michael Hurnslet just mirrored his deck, or some crop rotation.
Yeah, I was going to say if you're bringing it in here, you might as well almost have it in maybe
your main deck. Yeah, so this would be the remind for the remind. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Oh, and he's tugging his own chest. Yeah, I agree.
This play I don't like at all.
No, I agree. You should have targeted the remand so that you've got your Jace out, and
then your Jace is in play, and you've drawn a card. Your opponent is.
You still have card advantage, aren't you?
Why are we fighting over this? I'm so confused.
I mean, I think it's fair to snap remand. I think all the plays have been fine so far.
No, but I think at this point you just let everything go, and that remind goes in exile.
Yeah.
So that's maybe Drew's been playing on too many mission briefings to know that Snapcaster does give the alternate, but it'll be hard to say.
So for those at home who don't know, if Drew remanded Scott's remand, it wouldn't go back to his hand; it'd go to exile. So Drew gets essentially a 2-mana counter spell that says draw a card. So he does get a bit of card advantage out of it, and he gets the tempo from leaving Jason the battlefield.
Yeah, he gets the Jason play as well. So it'd be interesting to see if that line actually ends up costing him a bit of board control at this point, because now Scott's. I'm not going to say ahead. Scott has the board currently.
Yes.
Because of that interaction as well, but he definitely have to fight over the Jace otherwise.
Well, how different is this to mission briefing, mate?
Well, you
got the 2-1.
It's more the fact that you're not, because Drew reminded his own Jace, you're not having to commit a resource into the Jace this turn, because the Jace will just take over the game if it's left unanswered. So Commentators pretty good.
Zizark is very good.
Yes, that's a good magic card, that one.
So just to note though, as far as Drew's misplay there goes, he still gets the card advantage from remounting his own card. What he actually really lost was the tempo of Jace.
Mm.
He could have been in the same position of card advantage.
Yeah.
It
would have been exactly the same, except there would have been a Jason play.
Yeah.
You're hoping for misdirection here, aren't you? This will be brainstorm response, I think.
Fine misdirection. One time. No, it's mystical. Yeah, it's fair.
Mystical response.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right?
I'm just thinking what you get.
Get in treat.
Point it.
Luke seems to think we should be pointing Mental Misstep, even though it counters such broken cards like Mental Misstep.
You just counted a point for potentially 2 life without a point. That's unfair.
Yeah, but it also counters Mental Misstep, and that card's not even pointed yet.
It counters a lot of things. It counters Ancestral Recall. How many points is Ancestral? I failed that quiz that was on there.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I missed a lot of cards.
There was someone posted how many points do you know in Highlander? How many pointed cards? It's tougher than I thought. Did he just rip that anyway?
I believe so.
So he was going to mystical for entreat, and then he just had it.
He did pure the intro.
So Mental Misstep did nothing.
Mental Misstep did heaps.
Let's go. Spell Pierce up. Come on.
No, he'd have Red Blast up.
Entreat for 2. Entreat for 2 is going to do it.
It's a quick log.
I think. Oh, can't do that. Flusterstorm.
Yeah, he's going for the Flusterstorm. Yeah.
Mm.
Actually, don't mind this line. This line's kind of cool.
You know that they've got.
Flusterback.
Oh no!
Bountiful riches.
Wow. So
if he'd saved that Mental Misstep, he would have been able to counter one of the ones on the Angels.
Yeah, just so people understand, Scott hydroblasted the entreat to tick up the Flusterstorm because he could successfully fluster.
That's actually a super sick line. That's super cool. I've definitely had that up with the Blue Blast over Hydro and stuff because I've got some really nice some beta Blue Blast and Red Blast that I use. But Pyroblast is technically better because you are able to Pyroblast off color and Hydroblast off color things. So like in Legacy, for example, you can Pyroblast your Monastery Spook for a Prowess trigger or something like that.
Yes, but I've started running Red Blast because there's so many diverts now.
The level
that I don't want it to divert me. So I'm actually playing the worst one so that it doesn't get diverted back to like some random land. So they've got less divert targets.
Interesting level. But yeah. It's the old, you got to mix up your snow-covered basics with your regular basics for predictive importance.
It's getting real neck level, isn't it?
But, had the Phlogiston back. That was nuts.
And there's some...
he does get to resolve a treasure cruise, like, if Scott has left in any full removal, which unfortunately I don't think he would have.
There are a lot of clean ways to deal with this, like Mystic Confluence, bounce, draw, or even Cryptic, like bounce, draw, I like, and then try to race the 4/4 with, a 2/2 and some card advantage. Top's pretty decent, no misstep here.
Missteps are gone.
JC boy. Getting in there. It's 2-turn clock.
It's interesting to see that Drew's deploying his threats before. So now, like...
He's not playing around Cryptic.
Oh, it's not even that. It's the one thing that I think a lot of people get in the habit of, and it is potentially a little bit of lazy magic as well, is that why give your opponent any more information that you would like them to be privy to with what you can do with your turn? Like, if you pass on 5, make this attack, you may prompt a remove. Like, if Scott had, like, a removal spell for one of the angels... then you use the removal spell of the angels, and then you probably clear a path for the Jace. But by playing the Jace before combat and, giving, like, basically being like, this is what I'm going to do with my turn, and my combat steps the second half of this. You give Scott more information and tools to work with as well. Like, Scott may have had like a removal spell for an angel, but may also have Toxic Deluge in his hand.
Yeah, so now he goes instead
now he just takes the 4 and then he deluges his turn as well. But
I agree. Although I don't think...
Guess for him, but this will be no, it doesn't have... I swear Drew had Pyro.
He'd have... Is it him to reckon then?
Yeah, he's got him and Cruz.
Did you see the Pyro?
No, I just assumed that because Drew's had everything this game that he also has the Pyro as well.
It was a fluster is what he had.
Yeah,
him's pretty decent, to be honest. I mean, I think the Angels are still going to do the job. So,
wow.
Do you use swords there?
Probably. You've got the top.
Guess so.
It doesn't change. It doesn't really change the clock, right?
Oh, get rid of Chrome Rocks, nice. It does change the clock.
No, because he was on 11. He was
you're right. He'll just jump anyway.
Yeah, he goes 8/8.
Yeah, you might as well. Yeah, it's true.
And because he's got the colonnade as well.
That. So yeah,
it wasn't a bad turn.
Wasn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, you just dead to a land. You just dead to a land, and I think Drew would have stacked a land. No. What's he got?
I guess Drew wouldn't have stacked the land.
You're in a bad spot when you just dead to basic land. Yeah, he didn't have the land on the top of that thing. The third card down was the Misty. This will still be 2 turns. Yeah, I don't like. As we were kind of looking at deck lists before, like Drew's only creature-based threats is pretty much the spell-based version in a trait, so I don't think there's cards like Deluge or Damnation or anything like that in this deck. No, they wouldn't have come in and they would have been slotted out. But no, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, it makes you assess the threats. Like, sometimes you're like, oh, I need to kill this attacking creature for tempo reasons. But if they play an even better creature before combat, you're like, actually, I want to save up my kill spell for that creature because I can. Yes, I don't want to take the tempo, but what's worse is this new result. It's just the whole thing we were saying before about just giving your opponent
I think it's very relevant. It's a lot more relevant than I think people realise.
It's pretty important actually in a lot of aggro decks. Like you'll probably see me like do a lot of weird kind of things when you're playing against me, or you've seen some of my games as well, where I'm kind of either playing offbeat or off curve or off tempo or even things like that as well, just to kind of I'll make pretty like on the board pretty bad attacks just to see what my opponent's going to do, and you get the read on what they're going to do by that way. So sometimes you'll play into the card that you expect your opponent to have, and you'll have to run out a card that you expect them to have, and if they don't have it, then you kind of have the idea that they can't have it at that point. You can't even hit Fatal Push here, right? Yeah.
There we go. All right.
Mission briefing as well.
Well played from both players, and Drew takes it. One
pretty convincingly, actually.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was a grind in game 1, but it was really Drew all the way. And game 2 was just
Yeah,
intriguing.
the longer the game goes, it seems that Drew's deck's quite favoured as well. And if everyone's playing like the more mid-rangey version of Kess as well, just having access to more walkers and rats and all these effects means that you'll probably just be able to outbig the big deck almost.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. We're Adelaide Eternal. That was round 2. We'll see you for the next one.